The topic of this workshop is how to optimize your resume and get ready for calls with recruiters. We know that putting together your resume and all of your application documents is usually a little bit stressful if you haven't done it in a while, but we want to reassure you that there's many other people in your shoes. And so we're going to give you some tips and tricks to help you feel more confident as you tackle this step in your job search. So for those of you that I haven't interacted with before, my name is Amy Ahern, and I am the Vice President for Career Services at Pathstream. And that's basically just a fancy title to mean that my job is to prioritize helping get you a job. And so I work closely with Samira, who is one of our career coaches, and she is also a former recruiter. So she will be here to provide a lot of insight into how recruiters screen and look at resumes, and then tips that you can use to get ready for calls with those recruiters. So we're very excited to be joining all of you tonight and look forward to taking some of your questions as we go through this. All right, so today's goal is to share 3 key strategies for optimizing your resume, and then share some practical tips and advice on how to prepare for and master calls with recruiters. So we'll jump right in. We're going to start by sharing some resume strategies, then we'll share some tips and tricks for those recruiter calls. And then finally, you will get to do a Q&A and have Samira directly answer all of your questions based on her experience. So when we think about how to optimize your resume, there's 3 key things that we want you to keep in mind. The first is to focus on your impact and accomplishments, not just your job tasks. So as you go about writing those bullet points on your resume, many people start out by just kind of listing their responsibilities. But what really distinguishes an impressive resume from just an average one is that you start to quantify and really capture what impact you made while you held those responsibilities. So we'll get into that a lot more and show you how to start to do that. We also recommend including transferable skills in your resume. So we know that many people we work with in Pathstream's career services are switching fields. You might have been a grocery cashier and now are looking for a job as a data analyst, or you might have been a former teacher and now want to be a project manager. But even if the job field that you're switching into looks and feels a lot different on paper, we can usually find some transferable skills that you've had in a past experience. And that's what we want to capture and translate so that when a recruiter or a hiring manager is looking at your resume, it doesn't look like it's coming out of left field, but instead they can see clear through lines between what you've done in the past and what you are applying to do in the future. So we'll talk a lot about that. And then the final strategy that we're going to dig deep on is how to customize your resume for each kind of role you're applying for. You might have heard this before, but what will really help get you in the door at a new company is to make sure that your resume feels very tailored to the specific job opportunity you're applying for. So we're going to give you some strategies on exactly how to do that. All right, so tip number 1, focusing on impact and accomplishments. How do you do that? Well, like I mentioned, most resumes are often going to read like a bulleted list of tasks that people performed in a role. So you might see something like this: used Excel to calculate budgets, greeted customers and assisted with questions, performed regular inventory checks to ensure items were stocked, or organized team events and trainings. There's nothing wrong with any of this. It's very clear, it's straightforward, it's grammatically correct. It does capture what you did in the role. However, to truly get the attention of a recruiter and hiring manager, we want to show you a few things you can do to make bullet points like this a lot stronger. Because we want the resume reviewer to pick you over someone else that has performed those same tasks. So how do you stand out? Well, the thing that you need to do is make sure your resume bullets emphasize the impact you had in a role and what you accomplished for the company or the team. And if you can quantify these bullet points, that's even more ideal. So let's show you how to do that. Here's the example we were looking at before. Use Excel to calculate budgets. That's the straightforward task description. But if you're going to quantify it, You can start with an action verb like monitored budget actuals against forecasts to prevent overages using Excel, resulting in all projects finished 5% under budget. So that really starts to capture impact and to quantify the effect that you had on the business instead of just saying that you did kind of straightforward budget calculations. So let's look at another example. Instead of just saying greeted customers and assisted with questions, you could say something like developed strong relationships with customers, resulting in positive survey responses and 2-time employee of the month title. So again, you're adding a number. You're starting not to just describe what you did, but what impact it had, so that you created positive survey responses and that you were recognized as a result of these efforts. Let's look at another one. Performed regular inventory checks to ensure items were stocked. How could we strengthen this? We could do something like optimize a new process for monitoring inventory utilized by a 10-member team. So in this case, you can see that you're not directly quantifying impact. It's not a percentage or a change, but you are showing the scale of the team that you worked with. And in that way, you're also helping to quantify the kinds of outcomes that you achieved. And finally, organized team events and trainings could become something like planned and executed 10 team trainings attended by over 50 people. So again, you're just starting to make your results a little bit more concrete and quantify the amount of trainings that you executed and how large all of those were. And so this just starts to paint a much more vivid example of not just what you did, but the impact that it had. You might be starting to think, okay, but these responsibilities I had on my resume were really long ago. How exactly do I remember how many people I served with this training, or what percentage change I saved in the company budget? And that's okay. You can approximate some of these things. It just is a good homework assignment to try to go through, find whatever supporting documentation you had from those past roles, do a little back of the envelope calculations to try to give a rough estimate whenever possible of how many people you were working with, what the change was, what the quantifiable results were that you can directly attribute to the work that you did. And if you are working with a Pathstream career coach, we can also help you kind of think through how to do some of these calculations and turn your task bullet points into really quantifiable impact statements. Okay, so how exactly should you put these bullet points together? You've probably heard this before, but we do see over and over again as we're making resume edits that a lot of people fail to do this. And that is to start each bullet point with a powerful action word to describe the work you did. So if you think back to elementary school, when teachers were always encouraging you to use active verbs when you were writing sentences, the same thing applies when you're writing a resume. And so there's lots of different tools and glossaries and word banks online that can help you find effective resume phrasing. But here are some of the ones that can give you an example of how you start to really bring the activities and tasks that you did in past jobs to life using an action word. So it's something like designed, built, coordinated, organized, created, implemented, launched. It's something that's really going to convey that you took a leading and active role instead of just a passive role. And that can really kind of make a difference when a hiring manager is quickly glancing at your resume and wants to get a sense of, is this person a leader who makes a quantifiable impact, or are they just sort of an average employee that's I'm not going to get as much value out of? All right, so you've picked your action verb. Now the key is to, whenever possible, follow up with numbers. So that's what we were talking about previously. A percentage, a number of people you worked with, a range, a ranking. Were you the top 10% the salespeople at your company? Did you win an award that was only given to 5 people annually? Did you serve 150 customers on average every day? Did you decrease the budget of what your company spent on advertising by a certain percentage? All of those types of things can really add kind of juicy and concrete details to your resume. So you're showing an increase, listing a ranking, listing frequency, or showing volume. And here are some examples of how you can start to do this. All right, and a few more examples, just because I know it's always really helpful to see how other people can start to quantify impact on a resume. So you can think about, did you track daily sales to increase team efficiency? That's showing a % change. Did you lead a team of 5 employees? That's starting to quantify the scale and size of the team you worked with. Did you maintain 98% accuracy in something that you did? That's another way that you can show, what feedback you'd gotten from your boss in terms of how accurate you were. You can show and quantify the number of bank deposits that you sent each week. You can see the number of customer complaints you resolved or the number of new employees that you mentored. So again, just think of everything you're listing on your resume in terms of volume, % change, size of team, size of customer base you interacted with. If you think hard enough, you can almost always find a way to start to incorporate numbers into your bullet points. And that can really distinguish you from just like the average resume to a resume that demonstrates impact and concrete value. So let's all practice in the chat here for a minute. It can always be helpful to start to put this into action. So turn this resume bullet into something that quantifies and shows impact and measurable accomplishments. So instead of just saying process refund requests and responded to customer complaints, write a version in the chat that shows some quantifiable results. So I'll give you a minute to do that. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but what you're doing here is taking the phrase process refund requests and responded to customer complaints and finding a way to quantify results and add those to this phrase. So Carlos is the first one who jumped in and has a great response here. So processed 50 refund requests with success and solved 75 customer complaints every week. That's a great example of how to add some basic numbers that can help you quantify your impact. Another great example from Rena. Let me read that one. Processed 100% of refund requests and reduced 20% customer complaints last year. That's an excellent use of percentages to start to quantify impact and to show accuracy. Kimberly is saying process 50 refund requests and responded to 10 customer complaints on a daily basis. And that's an excellent way you're breaking down by time. So how many a day did you process? Kindle is saying process an average of 100 requests per day and built positive customer relationships. Again, it can be very straightforward, but just adding a number like that can really make your accomplishments come to life. So excellent job. Hopefully you're getting the hang of that. But it can be helpful just to think about all of the bullets on your resume. How can you start to make them more quantifiable? Okay, transitioning into tip 2, which is to include transferable skills on your resume. What exactly do we mean by that? Well, a transferable skill is a skill that is common across many different categories and types of jobs. So these could be things like time management, organization, professionalism, and communication. And so, like I mentioned, if you are transitioning from a career field that seems very unrelated to the type of job that you're trying to get, it can be really helpful to think about what are the common skills that you've learned in past roles that you are going to need to apply to this role in a new field or a new sector. And so we've given you some examples here: time management, organization, professionalism, and communication. But I'm curious for all of you, what are some other types of transferable skills that you can think about that would be applicable across multiple types of jobs? Just type your ideas in the chat again. So I've seen customer service, which is an excellent example and very applicable across many different types of roles. Problem solving is another one. Customer service is usually undervalued. That's right, Kendall. Detail orientation, people management, training, presenting, creative thinking, project management. These are all really good examples. Communication, data analysis, leadership, storytelling. Yes, you guys are fabulous at this. Accountability, implementation. Yes, these are all really, really excellent examples. And so thinking about what you've done in the past and how it can translate to future roles can help give you some good fodder for what you should be putting as bullet points on your resume. So here's just some others. I think you hit a lot of these, but things like writing, teamwork, leadership, adaptability, problem solving, listening, creativity, computer skills, management, problem solving, listening, organization, critical thinking, and communication. Those are all examples of transferable skills. And transferable skills are important because they are the things that can help you land a job, even if, oops, slides are skipping ahead of me. Even if your skill set and background are not perfectly aligned to the new role that you're seeking. So if you are changing careers, like we mentioned, transferable skills help you reposition yourself as qualified for the job, even if your previous experience was in a completely different industry. And at Pathstream, we have seen that this really, really works. So we have seen people come in from a whole variety of different backgrounds. They might have been a food service worker who went working on the front lines in kind of a cafeteria or a restaurant setting. But we have helped them identify that they have customer service skills, and that can be useful when they're applying for a job as a Salesforce admin, and they can highlight that they, again, have served a huge number of customers, had to process different types of requests, handle those with professionalism and accuracy. And if they can feature those kinds of things on their resume, and then be equipped to talk to a hiring manager about how what they've done in the past would be relevant to a new role, we've often seen great success if people really work on honing in on what transferable skills they have that could be relevant to the next opportunity. So how should you go about doing this? So the first step is actually to find job descriptions of the positions that you're interested in. So instead of doing this abstractly, go online on LinkedIn, Indeed, on any website of employers that you are interested in and find some real job descriptions. And then you should look at the requirements for that position. So they're almost always going to list in bullet point form some of the skills that they are looking for. And they're going to say things often like communication or teamwork. So think about what you've done in the past that will connect to the requirements that are being listed on the job description. And then write bullet points in your resume that are going to showcase what you've done in the past that are connected to those job requirements that they are asking for. And so again, it's really looking at specific requirements and then figuring out from your past experience, even if that requires thinking a little bit creatively about what you've done in past roles and how you could position that, and write bullet points that are going to almost directly line up to the requirements that are listed in the job description. So here's an example. Kim is looking for a digital marketing position. She notices that many of the job descriptions ask for copywriting and communication skills. So she is currently a barista, and she has used both of those skills in her current job. So she crafts the following bullet points for her resume. She's a barista at Blue Sofa Cafe, and the two things she highlights are writing monthly newsletters for the cafe, and then communicating and serving over 150 customers a month. And she was 2 times the employee of the month. So again, you can see that she's quantifying impact and she is highlighting these transferable skills. And so often when you work with a Pathstream career coach, one of the first things you're going to do during a resume review call is just, we're going to look and interview you about your past work experience and see what you have done in those roles that could be transferable to a new role. And those are the kinds of skills that we're going to be highlighting. So for example, a lot of times we've seen that someone might have been an admin assistant at a doctor's office or a medical office or a legal office. And when we talk to them about the digital marketing role that they would like to get into, we learned that in the past, they actually managed social media accounts, on behalf of that office where they were an admin assistant. So that is the kind of thing that is directly relevant past experience that you should be featuring on your digital marketing resume moving forward. Or you could think about these broader categories of transferable skills, like we talked about: leadership, communication, management. And if you've done those in the past and you're applying for a project management role, well, it's definitely going to make sense to highlight your past communication and management experience. So you can think both broadly and specifically about the types of transferable experiences that would be really valuable to feature on your resume. All right, and then getting into tip 3 here, which is to customize your resume. So we often see that one of the most common resume mistakes is that people perfect one version of their resume and they're sending it out to every type of job. But instead, what can really make the difference in a job search is customizing your resume for different kinds of jobs you're applying for. Because if that document is well aligned to the job description, the recruiting or hiring manager is more likely to interview you. So here's just some facts to keep in mind. On average, recruiters are only spending 6 to 7 seconds reviewing your resume. They're seeing a high volume of candidates, and they're usually clicking through what's called an ATS, or applicant tracking system, to just very quickly scan and see if you meet the minimum qualifications for the role. So you want to make sure that you cover the basics, that your resume is well formatted, that it's organized, and that the recruiter can quickly locate what makes you a good fit for the role. We also recommend using a tool like JobScan, and we'll provide a link to that, to see how you can optimize your resume to more closely align with the job description. So this is an example of a free tool, and there are several out there where you can literally copy and paste the text of your resume into one box, and then copy and paste the job description for the role you're applying to in another box, and it will give you a score and say, how closely have you matched the requirements of the job to your resume? And so you want to be thinking about, again, looking at that requirements section for the role, and then writing bullet points that are going to, as much as possible, mirror the same language and show that you have transferable skills that are directly relevant to the kinds of requirements that they are seeking. We often also see that people might have a job search where they might be applying to 2 different kinds of jobs, right? You might be applying for some customer service roles because you just need some backup opportunities. And then you also might be applying for digital marketing roles. That's kind of your stretch or dream role, but you know that you need some employment in the meantime. If you are doing that and have a job search strategy where you're looking for 2 very different types of positions, you should really create different versions of your resume, one for the marketing roles and one for the customer service roles, because they're going to highlight different kinds of transferable skills, maybe even different experiences based on which is most relevant for the job. If you've been, for example, a social media coordinator for your church in a freelance and volunteer capacity, you might feature that on the marketing resume, but it might not be so relevant for the customer service resume. So you can have those 2 different types of resumes, and then go even further and make sure the bullet points are customized to the specific job descriptions that you're applying for. So it might seem like a lot of work, but it is more efficient to customize like that and actually get interviews versus just kind of spamming out the same resume to every single job that you apply for. We've just seen that that does not have great results. And so it can be more efficient in the long run to just spend some time doing this customization. Okay, so let's look at an example. Here is Trish. She's an aspiring data analyst. She's interested in applying for 2 analyst roles she has found. One is a customer service analyst and one is a sales ops analyst. And while these jobs might use similar data skills, they will have different day-to-day responsibilities. So Trish pulls out keywords from each of the 2 job descriptions and incorporates them into separate resumes. The first one is going to highlight her customer service experience, and the second one is going to highlight her sales experience. So how does she actually go about doing this? Well, one, she should analyze the job description for both positions. She wants to look at the title, the responsibilities, and the keywords that are repeated. And then what she's going to do is tailor her 2 resumes. So she wants to work the terms that she found in the job description into each of those resumes. And again, don't feel like you have to come up with creative synonyms. In some cases, it's even better to mirror the exact language and terminology that is in the job description in your resume, because the hiring manager is probably the one who wrote that job description. And so the more they are seeing words and terms and experiences that they will deem applicable, the better. So mirror that language as much as possible and write bullet points that are going to demonstrate your skills in each of those areas. Okay, so here's another example. Trish notices that the sales ops analyst job description includes experience with BI and analysis tools like Excel, Tableau, Power BI, and Salesforce. And Trish has experience using most of those tools if she completed the Tableau data analytics program. So she can add this to one version of her resume. Use BI and analysis tools, Excel, Tableau, Salesforce to perform analysis on, and then provide more details there. And these could also be added to the skills section at the top of her resume. But again, you can see that she's almost directly mirroring the requirements of the job in the bullet points on her resume. She also notices in the sales ops analyst job description that it says requires excellent communication skills with the ability to collaborate across teams. So Trish is going to make sure that her sales ops resume bullet points mention the words communication skills and collaborate across teams. Again, you're really just trying to check the box and make sure that you have demonstrated that everything they're looking for in the job description matches what is on your resume. And when I say everything, you don't have to be entirely exhaustive. You can be selective about the things that you actually have that are relevant, that you feel confident highlighting, but you should make sure a significant percentage of what they're asking for, you try to reflect in what you demonstrate on your resume. All right, so we have gotten to part 2. Now we are into recruiter tips and tricks. So if you haven't already, feel free to be adding questions in the chat. I know Samira has been responding there, but you can keep them coming and we will be addressing them all at the end. So Samira, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Amy. So hi, everyone. I'm in East Tennessee, by the way. So hello from the Smokies. I wanted to preface, before we go into what recruiters do, I want to just preface it with, in general, when you're, gonna engage, like I've been chatting with some people about like how to get noticed and all these things. First, you need your resume that needs to be ready to go. All your tools need to be in place, like LinkedIn, like your resume needs to be optimized for the ATS system. So they can't get to you, the recruiters can't get to you if they don't have the best means to do that. So make sure that you have your up-to-date LinkedIn profile, you're connecting with the recruiters, you're connecting with the hiring managers. So let's talk a little bit about what a recruiter is or what they do. So there are a few different types. We'll get into greater detail about those in a moment, but they are, and my background is in recruiting too, so that gives you a little context. But recruiters are hired by a company to find, screen, and attract candidates to open job requisitions, open roles. And they are your partner. Recruiters want you to win as a candidate. It makes them look good, and you also win too, right? You get to be part of the team. They want to see you succeed in an interview. Like I said, because when they win, you win, or when you win, they win. And then that obviously gives them the opportunity to fill a job quickly and they can move on to another position, ideally make more money or be seen in a better light by their hiring manager, by their the team that they report to internally. So let's talk a little bit who the different types of individuals you're going to be interacting with in an interview process. So there might be more than this, right? You might deal with a coordinator or something, a recruiting coordinator or an HR manager, but in general, you're going to work with company recruiters, staffing agency recruiters, and hiring managers. First off, the company recruiters, they focus on hiring for one company. They usually work for a single organization. They are an employee typically of that company in some capacity. And they're typically also specialized at filling roles within that company's industry or the space they're in. So finance, education, technology, things of that nature. But there's also some variations there. So the final thing too is they usually really deeply understand the company's culture, especially if they've been there for a while. They know the team they're working for or recruiting for, the general processes and systems, technologies, and things like that that the company uses. So they're a great insight into what you can expect if you were to join that company. So staffing agency recruiters, these people are a little bit different. So they may be called staffing recruiters, agency recruiters. It's very similar, but you will find that they have different industries that they work in as well. So you might find an agency that works in the creative space. They might also work in the IT services space, or they might actually have even a more specialization, like they could work in Salesforce, like they hire Salesforce experts, or they just work in a particular sector of the IT. So staffing agency is very general as well. You may want to find one that's exclusive to the industry you're in. So if you're in the creative space, go find a creative staffing agency, or you may find an agency that focuses specifically on accounting or admin or back-end support, things like that. So these individuals, these staff agency recruiters, focus on hiring for lots of companies. They have lots of clients. They have more urgency to fill roles because they get paid every time they fill a position. Typically, they also recruit people for all kinds of positions, from entry level, temp, contract, regular, full-time, to very senior positions in lots of different industries. Their book of business, basically, quote unquote, can be very broad. And what's interesting with a staffing agency recruiter too is you can establish a relationship with them at any point in your career, whether you're junior or senior, and they may be able to place you multiple times in your career. So it could be really valuable to establish a really great relationship with a reputable, well-known, nationwide even, or local recruiter that can help you continue to make progress. So at one point, you can start out as somebody entry level or mid-career, and then maybe eventually they work with you or you work with them, they're your clients. So a lot of interesting opportunities that can come out from that. So for hiring managers, these are typically your decision makers, right? They are the manager, they're the person who requested the new job to be filled. They're usually the one that has the gap on the team, and they're the expert on what they actually want and need. They're the key decision maker who will end up, making the decision on who to hire with their role, but they partner with the recruiters to make that decision. So there's obviously a collaborative effort here. The recruiters meet with the hiring managers to gather their requirements and then go out to find that talent. But they usually find, they determine what those top 3, 4, 10 items they're looking for in a talent. They design the interview process and the onboarding, and obviously as well, like the success of that employee long-term at the company. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about a call with a recruiter. That could be a phone screen, that could be an interview. I will say that prior to getting the conversation, the actual call, that usually starts with an interaction before that, right? The recruiter's reaching out to you to actually engage and say, hey, we'd like to meet with you. I saw your resume. Do you have some time? So it's usually via email, but also just be aware it can come through LinkedIn as well, because lots of recruiters are on LinkedIn. There is actually a version of LinkedIn for specifically recruiters called LinkedIn Recruiter. So that's how they're going to message you as well. So make sure your settings in LinkedIn are up to date so that you get those emails, or you go into LinkedIn regularly, so you're checking those messages. But once you get that message, typically the recruiter's going to ask you, send me a few dates and times to meet. You can quickly send those out, but also you can ask, is this a phone screen? Is this a full interview? Is there anything I can do to help prepare for our conversation? That's always a good idea, because again, these people are your partners and they like to know how interested you are in speaking with them anyway, and learning from that very first interaction is really helpful. So actually, when you get on the call, you'll go through the pleasantries and introductions. The recruiter will typically spend around 10 to 20 minutes max in those first 10 to 20 minutes to figure out if you're qualified and you're interested in the role. They'll ask general questions about your resume and application. So this is really just to get to know you, figure out if it's a good fit from a culture standpoint, from a basic technical or communication standpoint. So one of the questions might be, why are you interested in this company or this role? Why are you looking to make a change? Other things could include, I see there's an employment gap, or I see that you might be changing careers. Tell me a little bit about that. I'd love to know a little more about your story. So that's an opportunity for you to tell your story, talk a little bit about anything that you want to address, right? Something that makes you think you're a great fit, to give them some context, because then they're going to do a deeper dive once they get to know that part. Which leads us to, if you're a strong candidate, the recruiter will go into that deeper conversation to ask more detailed questions. Many times if it's a strong recruiter, they know what they're doing. They've worked closely with the hiring manager. They know exactly what they need to be asking. Sometimes the hiring manager asks or presents these questions to the recruiter to ask the candidate. And other times the recruiter is pretty strong. They've been in the industry for a long time. They've been doing this a long time. So they don't need to have like the hiring manager give them questions. They actually have the questions, they understand the concepts of the role. And so they go into a deeper dive like, okay, well, this role requires knowledge in Salesforce or Tableau or Facebook ads manager. Like, tell me about your experience with these skills. And then how do you see yourself like contributing to the team's mission or what we're trying to accomplish? And then also greater detail about your interest and any other skills that are necessary to be qualified to make it to that next round. Something to remember too every time is that these recruiters are trying to shortlist. So they can't submit 50 candidates to a hiring manager. Usually that isn't perceived well. So remember that the recruiters are going to try to screen for the top echelon of talent. So that's why you want to always bring your best self to that conversation so that, you know, you can be put in that top 5 talent pool. Obviously, they can come back to you if anything falls through with those candidates, but that's why that initial conversation is really important. All right, so we're going to go through some 5 tips for talking to recruiters. First, prepare, and then second, show them you're interested. Third, tell them your story. 4, ask questions, and 5, follow up. We'll go a little bit further and deeper into each of these next. So first off, prepare, right? Before you get on the phone with a recruiter, you got to do your research. You got to read and reread the job description. That includes everything, the job, the responsibilities, the skills, all the requirements that were in there, just in case they want to address something with you that doesn't match on your resume to the job, right? Make this as easy as possible for them so you're an easy sell. Google the company and explore their online presence. Figure out, do they have a LinkedIn company page? Can you follow it? Can you start researching some of the people in that organization, maybe even within the team you're interested in? So if you're interested in data analytics or data science, search all the people in that company, which you can do in LinkedIn. You don't need a special fancy way to do that. It's literally just using the search box, and find the people that are on those teams and start looking at their backgrounds, their profiles, and you can speak to that when you get to talk to the recruiter. It'll also show that you're really interested, and it's really great. So you can check out LinkedIn, websites, articles, blogs, press releases, all those things are really helpful. And then look at the recruiter's LinkedIn profile too. Uncover if you have anything in common. Find that commonality to build rapport so that you're memorable and that it shows just how great of a candidate you are. It's a really strong character trait. So it leads us to show them that you're interested. People want to talk to people that are excited and enthusiastic about a role. This can be the deciding factor between 2 similar candidates. And I guarantee you it's how it is every time. The candidate that doesn't show as much interest, doesn't show that they did the research, if you understand what the company does, even at a very basic level, you've already probably put yourself in the top echelon of people. Whenever anyone shows up to a call and I've asked them, like, tell me what you know about this company, and they kind of blankly respond, they kind of give me a brief response. It tells me they didn't do their research. There's a lot of emotional intelligence that takes place in these interactions. So it's best to say, you know what, I didn't have an opportunity to research it. That's okay too. You know, if you're just honest and upfront with the recruiter, just say, like, I had a really busy work week, but I'm really excited to talk to you. I'd love for you to share with me about the company and the role. I was really interested when you sent me the message. That would be fine. Alternatively, do your homework, do the rest of the research, set aside 10, 15 minutes right before the call, just to do a quick run through if that helps. But now I think I'm going to pass it over. Nope. Okay. There's a few more bullet points here. So be aware of your tone and the voice and the body language you use if it's a Zoom. That's the case in any situation, right? If you're at a networking event, a career fair, on Zoom, on LinkedIn. It doesn't matter in what capacity you're communicating with others, especially recruiters and hiring managers. Just be aware of how you're presenting yourself. Practice active listening. It sounds like the role requires a lot of blank. Here's how I can support that. So almost using the STAR method, always kind of showing your impact and what you can bring to the team that's unique. Calling the person by their name is great. So it's really nice to chat with you, Lauren. It's really nice to chat with you, Amy or Samira. That's really nice. People remember those things. There's something about brain science there that I don't know exactly, but so emphasize your interest in the role and the company, even if you're not asked. So it's not up to the recruiter to get you excited about the role. A lot of recruiters will and can do that. I actually find that more on the staffing agency side than on the corporate recruiter side. The company recruiters tend to be a little more chill, laid back, like, hey, I got a cush job. Like, I'm just going to try to bring people on that are excited to be here. Whereas agency recruiters might be trying to sell you the job a little bit more. But either way, it's really helpful if you have an interest in the role and you show that. And then obviously, as always, sign off with a thank you, reiterate your interest in the role, and just be follow up with people. Don't ghost them. We don't like it on either end. Like, you don't want to be ghosted. We don't want to be ghosted either. If you're not interested, then let us know in a really polite way. If you are interested, then stay in touch. Let us know. If that role's not a good fit, then obviously, if we had a good interaction, we will connect with you on LinkedIn, right? Like, you can send us a connection request. You can also ask for that. And alternatively, we may think of you for a future role. That's happened many times in my job. And I've been really happy to do that every time. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, so I'll let it pass it back to Amy, but this is a great quote from Amanda we'll share.
Yeah, so Amanda is another person on the Pathstream team who is also a former recruiter, and she has given us some excellent advice, which is that the people she was most excited to place in jobs were the people that are most excited to talk to her. And so that's, again, just underscoring that doing your homework, researching the company, bringing a genuine sense of enthusiasm for the role can really go a long way in making an impression with the recruiter or the hiring manager. So what you want to be doing is telling the recruiters your story. And so this is a really good thing to practice because many recruiting calls are going to start with this question. So tell me about yourself. How did you get from point A to point B in your career, and why are you interested in this role? And I can tell you that I've been doing a lot of interviews this week for roles at Pathstream, and I've been asking people this question. So it is something you should be prepared for and have a succinct and clear answer to, and really be able to draw the connections between what you've done in the past and why you're excited about this specific opportunity. So how do you craft an answer to this? Well, you can think about it using a past, present, future framework. So step one, start by talking about your past experiences and accomplishments. Then step two, talk about what you're currently doing. That could be a certificate, it could be part-time work, it could be whatever you are doing in the present. And then step three, you want to close by describing what you want for your future and why you want to work at that particular company. And having just listened to many of these kinds of responses, I think that a lot of people kind of fail to close the loop and say why they're interested in this specific company and this specific role. They might generally be telling me about how they want to work in education technology. That really doesn't tie it to why do I want to work at this specific company. And so the more that you can be very customized, just like you customized your resume to the role, the more you can customize your story and narrative and show specific interest and that you've done your homework, the better. So here's an example. In the past, you could say, I've been working in the event planning industry for the past 10 years. I absolutely loved the thrill of organizing 10,000 person events, working with diverse clients and managing budgets. By the end of my tenure in planning, I was managing a team of 30 people across 6 regions. As COVID began to slow down and eventually halt the event business, I decided to explore some of my other passions. I had always been intrigued by digital marketing and even had some experience with it while event planning. I often supported the marketing team that promoted the various events I led, so had awareness of various marketing strategies and tools in the industry. You can see that he, even in his oral response, is emphasizing quantifiable numbers, right? So he's mirroring what he probably put in his resume around 30 people, 6 regions, 10,000 person events. And that can be very powerful to have that kind of consistency. Then he'll move into the present. I recently decided to transition my career into the digital marketing space and enrolled in the Facebook Digital Marketing Certificate. In this program, I'm creating marketing plans, social media strategies, and various pieces of content marketing and social media ads. So if you're not currently employed, but you are taking this certificate program, this is a great place to feature all of the work and projects and relevant experience that you have been gaining by doing this learning program. And then that makes a nice transition point to the future. I'm most interested in cite the specific company name because I'm looking for a role where I can combine my digital marketing skills with event planning. And so again, then he ties it all together by saying the role at this specific company will allow me to use my marketing skills to support small businesses and marketing their events to a larger audience, and ends by conveying his enthusiasm, which is very exciting and motivating to me given my background. So it's really nicely connecting the dots between past experience, the present training program, and the future opportunity that he wants to pursue at this particular company. So to summarize, what makes a great answer to the question, tell me about yourself? You want to tell a confident story about your career journey, past, present, and future. You want to show off your skills, your specific accomplishments, and motivation, quantifying them whenever possible to match what's on your resume. You want to confidently acknowledge career changes and disruptions in your career. I know there was a question about this in the chat, and we do recommend that you think about if you have had gaps in your resume, all of the other relevant things you might have been doing during that time. You might have been caring for a child. You might have been doing freelance work. You might have been taking a certificate program. All of those things are good things to highlight and be upfront about. And people do increasingly expect you to be human, and any good employer is going to understand that you might have gaps in your resume, but that's not necessarily disqualifying. So instead, be upfront about acknowledging the reason for them as appropriate. You don't have to mention all your past work experiences, right? We don't want you to be going on and on and on and never get to the rest of the interview. So keep it succinct and highlight just the relevant details. And then describe how your interest in the field developed with intention versus randomly or haphazardly. So even if it doesn't feel like all of your past experiences connect, really think about, okay, what are my last 3 very relevant roles? What is the through line between what I did in those experiences and what I want to do in the future? And that's where if you've reflected with intention on your transferable skills, you'll be able to start to highlight things from past jobs that are going to be applicable in this new role that you're seeking. And finally, you want to make sure that who you're talking to feels like you've done your homework and that they are getting kind of special and unique treatment. So I have interviewed people before and they've said, oh, I read all of the articles that you published on this particular subject. And based on what you were saying in this one, here's why I'm excited to work at this company. Well, that is very flattering if someone, has read your article, has listened to your podcast episode, has done a little homework and knows what you care about or how what they have done in the past connects with something you're interested in. So go that extra mile. It can often really move the needle with an interviewer. And if you want to see a whole workshop on how to tell your story, we have done that in the past. So you can view this recording here if you want some concrete exercises and other tips on how to address that question in an interview. And then finally, we do encourage you to ask questions. So a call with a recruiter is a great opportunity to ask things about what the role is actually going to be like so you can stand out in future interviews. You want to be prepared with some of these questions so that you're showcasing your curiosity and your interest and helping you stand out in the eyes of a recruiter. So don't just ask very vague and generic questions that you come up with on the spot. Ideally, think about some of the things you'd want to ask about in advance so that you can make the most of this. And the question and answer part of an interview is often just as important to stand out as actually responding to the questions. It can really be the difference between someone that has been thoughtfully researching the company versus someone that really is not prepared. So here's some things you can ask. Can you tell me more about the role and the skills needed for this particular position? I see you've been a recruiter for many years. Is there a particular aspect of my background and story that you think I should emphasize in future interviews with this company? So kind of put the recruiter on your side and get their take on what you should be highlighting moving forward. What is the company culture like at XYZ company? Get some details there. And again, that can help you tailor your responses for future interviews. What are the next steps and timeline for the interview process? This is usually a good thing to close with as one of the final questions, of getting really specific about what you can expect in terms of next steps with the process. And then finally, do you have any advice or recommendations to make myself a more attractive candidate for this position? So again, put the recruiter on your side. They are often invested in trying to fill the role. So the more successful you will be in future interviews, the better for them as well. And then finally, follow up. So always follow up via email after any interview. And it doesn't have to be long and complicated. It's more just acknowledging their time and expressing your appreciation. So here's a sample. You can just say, thanks so much for chatting with me today about this role at this company. I really enjoyed our conversation and learning more about the role. Cite a few specific details, and then just close with something brief, like I look forward to next steps and thanks again for your time. So it does not have to be complicated, but does go a long way. So the recap for talking to a recruiter: prepare, show them you're interested in the job, tell your story using that past, present, future framework we talked about, ask questions and come prepared with those, and then follow up with a thank you note. Goes a long way. So that is the end of our formal presentation here. We will stay on a little bit more for any other questions that you have, but we do want to highlight that there are some upcoming career workshops in this series. On April 6th, we will be doing one on negotiating. And then on April 13th, we will be doing an AMA or an Ask Me Anything with the Pathstream Career Services team. So put those on your calendar if they are not already, and we will look forward to hopefully seeing many of you for those workshops. If you are interested in taking the next step in your career, we have our next set of digital marketing, data analytics, Salesforce admin, and project management programs, always available with monthly start dates. So you can view those offerings at pathstream.com/programs. Or you can schedule a free consult with an enrollment advisor by emailing enrollments@pathstream.com. And that is if you are not yet enrolled in a program, you can talk to an enrollment advisor. If you already are, you can get in touch with us at Career Services and we can connect you with a career coach to get you started working on your resume and get ready for jobs.